Burnt, Hal, Michelle. It's great to see all of you. Steve, Dave, William, welcome. Set. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I was just letting everybody know, for whatever reason, Zoom has decided not to recognize my camera today. So we will be off camera. I do apologize. It's also why we got started just a minute late. But it looks like we have a pretty good crew coming together here. So let's just go ahead and kick things off since we got a little delay on the front end there. So welcome, everybody. I hope you all had a great weekend. It's great to see some of our familiar faces, some new faces. If you're new to these events, this is Ninjacators' weekly live event called Profits at Noon. We are live 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at noon Eastern Time. My name is Nate. Co-hosting these sessions with me is our very own, the man, the myth, the legend, Richard Krugel. Richard's going to take the reins in just a minute here, and he's going to show you the levels that we are stalking for entry. We call these our levels to lock, so stay tuned for the levels to lock across our 6 favorite futures markets coming your way. And then in addition to that, today we have a little special surprise for you. We'll be doing one of our famed tool spotlights. So we're going to bust out a Ninjacators tool and take a look under the hood with you. So today we're going to be digging into the micro power trader. So as soon as Richard is done with the analysis here and our levels to lock, we're going to jump right into that. We will of course leave plenty of room for Q&A, so if you have any questions about the analysis, about our tool spotlight at any point throughout the session, please feel free to fire away in the chat, and I will ensure that everything is answered in the order we received it, everybody's taken care of. And then lastly, one quick shout out to those of you joining us on the simulcast on YouTube. It's great to have you. If you have any questions, feel free to fire away in the chat there. And I also want to put on your radar, just beneath the video, there is a link to join us directly in these Zoom sessions in the future if you would like to do so. We'd love to have you. So all that said, let's kick off the first Profits of Noon session of the week. We're here Monday, May 8th. Richard Krugel, won't you step in, sir, take the reins and show us our levels to lock.
Thank you, Nathan, and hello, everyone. Hope you all had a great weekend. Nice being back here again. Like Nathan said, I'm going to show you guys the micro power trade a little bit later on. As always, I'm going to go through the markets that I do cover using the levels to lock, as well as my market geometry techniques, pattern analysis, etc., etc. So before I do get started, just a quick reminder, as always, that all information in today's session is provided for educational purposes only, and it's not an offer or recommendation to trade futures, stocks, options, or forex. All right, let's dive into the charts. Quickly close those slides. As always, we're looking at the ES, the Nasdaq, the WIME, Russell, gold, and crude oil. Give you a quick recap of what has happened since last week's Thursday session. I was talking about this potential megaphone pattern, as some would call it. I like calling it an expanding triangle pattern, and it looks like it worked out. We were also looking at an invalidation level here. I was saying that we potentially have a expanding triangle at hand. And as I went through the analysis on Thursday, showing you some of the Fibonacci relationships between some of these internal waves. Just as a quick recap, any triangle, in this case an expanding triangle, typically runs in 5 waves. So you'll have, let's say in this case, a bullish move to the upside, and then you have a counter trend reaction. You then have a swing that breaks previous high, and then it starts making these swings that breaks previous highs. This one just pipped this previous low that was set here around, what was it, 26 April, and then we had a move back to the upside. Very importantly, we were looking at this pink line over here, which was that invalidation level. Should price have moved into that area, that would have, for me personally, invalidated the idea that a 4th wave was underway and that a 5th wave potentially ended somewhere around there. But the idea was that price could still move higher. Now, price did not really make new highs yet, as we can all see over here, but we did have a very strong reaction to the upside. I think this was on Friday. So yeah, price fell short of that invalidation zone. So I'm still sticking with a bigger count here that we've potentially seen a 4th wave, or the end of a 4th wave, and that price potentially gearing up to move higher again. And as I've been saying for quite some time, still thinking that a 5th wave is still possible. It does look like that, especially after the strong reaction. You can probably remember from Thursday's session that I would expect that after a expanding triangle ends, that you quite often have a very strong change in direction, which we had as well. So all of the sort of characteristics, should I say, of this expanding triangle has thus far worked out. So before we look at the levels to lock, just quickly, in a bit of a bigger picture here, since March, we've been following this sort of not sideways, but like zigzaggy movement to the upside. I mentioned that this potentially was a leading diagonal for a wave one, a beautiful ABC single zigzag for two that didn't make a new low, and that we've then potentially either seen a three, and we've been tracking this pattern for quite a while, but it was only on Thursday when I said like this could potentially be an expanding triangle. So with expanding triangles, and similar to that move we've seen in gold where we were following a symmetrical triangle, that I was saying that they typically pop up as your penultimate correction within a trending phase. So in this case, potentially still a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and then potentially that fifth wave that's still underway at the moment. Now, when we do see the end of a fifth wave, well, we wouldn't know really unless price reverses strongly from here without making a new high. But if price were to break these previous highs, then we could potentially expect a deeper correction at some stage, whatever form that might take. It could be a complex pattern, a single zigzag, whatever the case might be. So I'm cautiously bullish still on the ES towards new highs, but just in the back of my mind, still thinking that if this is going to be the final fifth wave, that we got to take note of that potential deeper correction. Right, so price has sort of been moving sideways above today's pivot point at 4,129. It's not reached R1 yet, which is at 4,182. Whether that will do it today, tomorrow, whatever the case might be, we'll just have to wait and see. And we also got R2 as well as our projected range highs very close to each other, around about these previous highs. So those could definitely be targets, but not really much price action, or let's say price movement today. It's sort of been moving sideways. Just something quickly on the economic calendar. We just need to note that things are a bit quiet on the economic calendar today and tomorrow. When was it? Wednesday, we have the core CPI figures coming out, so that might be a biggie. Maybe the market could take a breather here. Who knows? This is going to force price back up when that comes out. However, that's going to react, we just don't know. But typical behavior for some of these indices, especially gold as well, is to see some bit of sideways movement heading into those CPI figures. So that's on Wednesday. What do we have on Thursday? We have the producer price index figures as well as unemployment claims. That's on Thursday. And then on Friday, not really anything happening there except for the preliminary University of Michigan consumer sentiment figures. Not really sure if that's going to do anything. So the big one for this week will be the CPI figures. So where the price is now going to, if this is the end of it, expanding triangle or megaphone pattern, whatever I want to call it, is price going to break it before that news event? That might be a catalyst to actually force it even higher. We'll just have to wait and see. And obviously, we'll be back on Wednesday again to see where price is at in relation to the analysis and what we could potentially expect from those figures. Right, so not really too much to mention other than I think this pattern or the idea that it was an expanding triangle sort of worked out nicely, but it's not over yet. Price will obviously have to break these highs to confirm this pattern. But let's see. We'll recap things again on Wednesday. NASDAQ, on the other hand, just fell short of these previous highs. Obviously, a different sort of price action, price patterns here. I think what we've seen here was some sort of an ABCX and a complex C wave, a Y wave, however you want to measure that. And then also, obviously, last week we had, it wasn't even last week, it was the end of April, very strong move back to the upside. So, even here, you can see a 5-wave sequence, a 1, 2, a 3, a 4, 5. Maybe this just being an ABC. And if this is correct, and this was, let's say, also a final fifth wave moving higher, then on the smaller scale of things, one would expect something like that to happen. All right. So also probably have to get rid of these upward sloping pitchforks that I have in my charts. But again, also here on the NQ, price sort of been running sideways a little bit, relatively quiet in a tight range today. Nasdaq also being above today's pivot point at 13,241. And yeah, just fell short of these previous highs. But if a break above that, we could probably see a quick move towards R1 at 13,427. And today's projected range high at 13,484. Again, might just be sort of quiet until Wednesday, but who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. So that's it for the NQ. The YM, on the other hand, not been as strong as the ES or the Nasdaq, obviously a different market comprised of different stocks. But yeah, same sort of thing here. We've had a break of this previous high, a strong move back to the downside. And what is really evident here on the YM is it's still been respecting this upward sloping shift pitchfork that I've had on my chart for quite some time now. You can even see after price reached this, what we call an upper red warning line, which quite often catches the extremities of a move. We even had instances where price pulled back, sort of found support, break. Where does it go to? Center median line support, back up again, support. And recently, and this was last week, Friday, found support here at this lower median line and is trying to make its way up again, but found resistance, well, maybe temporary. We'll just have to wait and see, again at the center median line. So this pitchforks, what I call the operating angle of this market, for me is still working. So in a lot of cases like this, I'll keep this pitchfork on there until price actually breaks out of the boundaries of that actual angles or slope that this pitchfork's running at. Similar sort of thing here, price being above today's pivot point, 33,576. What's quite nice about this scenario, though, if we do get a nice close above the center median line here, we can then potentially see a move towards R1. Again, if that's going to happen today or not, we just have to wait and see. These numbers will obviously change as days go by. So maybe we'll have to have a revisit here of this on Wednesday, which we'll obviously will. But that's quite often now I play things in relation to what price is doing with these angular support and resistance lines and how they close in relation to it and where they could potentially move towards, which is why these levels to lock make really good areas of support resistance as well as where you want to place your targets. Russell, again, as you probably all know by now, not one of my favorite markets. Been in one hell of a crazy upside down sort of wishy-washy price action. Really difficult to make sense of what's going on here. So I don't really want to go into Russell too much other than price just reached today's pivot point at 1,753. So whether it's going to move higher or lower, I mean, that's anyone's guess. Look, it's just some crazy, crazy price action. So very difficult to figure out what's going on there. This brings us to gold. Also very interesting here on gold. I showed you this, guys, on Thursday. We were expecting that price potentially making a fourth wave low. And this is after this symmetrical triangle that I was talking about when I started today's session. We had this three-wave move to the upside, and then what I would have thought potentially could have been, because, you know, when you have a three-wave move to new highs or in a trending directional sort of movement, then that typically, you know, normally things concludes in five waves, right? So you have a three-wave move. This is why I labeled this as three, not as a three, because it's a three-wave move, but we've got a 1, a 2, a 3, and then potentially this funny, I don't know, fifth wave to the five waves to the downside. What I thought was then an expanding flat correction. And yeah, again, beautiful evidence of how this whole sort of topping formation here, I don't want to say topping formation, but since price actually topped over here, I drew in this blue channel, and even though price overshot the upper limit of this channel and even went below it, price found resistance and support at the same angles. So what I just did was, for example, you have quite often we're working with market geometry, draw a line parallel to one of your median lines if you're using pitchforks or your channels. And if you have an area where price overshoots or undershoots an area, just use the same angle, project it from one of those overshots or undershot areas. And quite often you'll have, when price revisits another move, in this case to the upside, found resistance sort of at the same angle, similar to these 3 lows or 4 lows that occurred over here. So for a while, I've been saying that, expecting that fifth wave to potentially complete. It might have actually completed, and it just reached the upper side of that channel with a little bit of an overthrow again. Price nearly reached today's S1, which is very close to this lower channel. That's at 2000, probably a very big psychological level, while also price sort of bounce up and down around above and below that level as well. But we've had a very strong reaction to the downside. So it could potentially be that we've seen the end of a 5th wave. So I'm cautiously on the sidelines, I would say, with gold. I think we do get now a break below these lows, or this angle that I've drawn over here. That might be the first proper indication that a deeper correction is underway. And again, we're not looking at the bigger pictures like gold, over the long term going to move higher or lower. I'm just looking at a little bit sort of over the near term or shorter term, thinking what price is doing in relation to the sequence. We had a 1, potentially a 2, we said that 3, potentially at 4, and then potentially 5 that's either over or still making its way to the upside. So yeah, we have, if price does move higher, we're probably going to see resistance step in again at about 2043, which is this center channel line over here. It's so many times during this sort of sideways, sort of upwards movement, been acting as support and resistance for me for a long period of time. So while price is trading within the confines of these lines, these lines might, or angular lines might still act as support and resistance into the future until they either broken to the upside or the downside. Right, so that's gold. And then crude oil, classic scenario where you see a very strong move. It doesn't have to be a strong move, but we could see that crude oil is almost melting towards the downside. And we just had a pip of these previous levels, or this previous low that was set here in mid-March. And we have a very, very, very strong bounce back to the upside again. Now, this is one case where we got a 5-wave sequence. We counted it pretty nicely. But instead of a 5-wave sequence, meaning that we would expect some sort of a correction that finds a higher low and then a move back to the upside, we had some sort of a meltdown to the downside. Obviously, it made new lows. So I concluded that the only sort of corrective pattern, because it had to be corrective in 5-wave sequence, and the only pattern that fits that, if this was some sort of a C wave of an expanded flat, which I still stick towards. I think that is what it was. We had a 3-wave move, 3-wave move, 5-wave move, and boom, back to the downside. Similar to expanding triangles, when an expanded flat ends, you typically also have very fast moves back to join the major trend, which in this case is what happened. So crude oil, yeah, also a bit difficult to figure out since it's low here. Potentially this bounce we're seeing back to the upside could just be corrective, maybe a retracement of this entire move. But thus far, it's been a very strong bounce to the upside. I would need to start seeing a little bit more of a zigzaggy behavior to figure out if it is corrective. Well, we won't know for sure. We can always just sort of guess. But, if you follow these patterns for a long period of time, there is, you use market geometry like I do, then quite often you can sort of identify areas where a correction might end, if this is a correction. So, yeah, it's just reached a 50% retracement today. Again, sort of a strong move back upwards, been above today's pivot point, 70.54 for the entire day. It moved through R1. It just tested it again, nearly reached R2 at 73.87. So yeah, I would expect at some stage that if this is corrective, potentially we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe some sort of a move lower and another move back up to the upside and then a decline again. But I think this is still the early stages of a potential correction. And again, we'll just have to wait and see if that is the case. Obviously, we'll only know after the fact, but we can just try to do our best to figure out if there's some sort of pattern that fits that of a correction. And thus far, it's just been one sort of straight bounce to the upside. So at 50% retracement, potentially could make it towards 61.8. But again, we'll recap things on Wednesday and have another look at crude and all the other markets we follow. Right, so that's really it from the analysis side of things, apart from the ES that might have, entered that expanding triangle that I was talking about on Thursday. Gold sort of finding strong resistance at that upper channel line. Not much has really changed. Crude oil obviously still bouncing really hard. So again, we'll recap things on Wednesday. So if there's no questions about the analysis side of things, then I would like to proceed and move over to today's tool spotlight, which, like Nathan mentioned, will be on the micro power trader. So guys, if you've got any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll proceed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the analysis thus far, Richard. Very much appreciated as always. It's great to see the market through your eyes. And honestly, it's become my comfort zone over the years, getting to watch you do your analysis. So I always enjoy it, and I know our crew here does too. But if you have any questions about that for Richard, please feel free to fire away in the chat. Even if 5 minutes from now you think of something, just go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll be happy to dig into it with you. But in the meantime, it looks like Richard is firing up for our tool spotlight of the day for the micro power trader. So I don't want to get in the way of that. It looks like we're good to proceed. And again, any questions throughout this, please feel free to fire away. We'll make sure it's taken care of. But yeah, Richard, take us through it, sir.
Awesome. Guys, I got my workspace open, but before I do get there, let's first quickly talk about the micro power trader. We'll give you a quick introduction of what it is. Now, it's part of our pro series here at Ninjacators, and it actually consists of quite a few different tools, right? And as micro basically refers to that, it's mostly geared towards trading the micro contracts. So whether that's micro ES, NQ, gold, crude oil, whatever the case might be, it is one of the tools that I think about a couple of months ago, I did 5 live trading sessions using it, really enjoyed using it. I mean, there's really so many different tools included in, I would call this tool suite, that, you could really sort of achieve various different things. The way I like trading it was sort of intraday trading. There's also scalping sort of setups that you can use. You can use trend signals for trend continuation type setups. We have reversal signals. I quite like trading that one. I've actually set my workspace up for that. I'll show you in just a moment. We have a price projection indicator, trend oscillator indicator, as well as what we call the MPT trade levels. So yeah, it's quite a jam-packed tool set that you actually get. Let me just quickly get my micro power trader workspace open, and then I'll try to explain quickly what it is, or some of the features that I quite like trading with. So first things first, let me just see why I got that going. Let's hide that, and then I'll quickly, or in depth hopefully, explain what all of these colors on the chart means. Right. So like I said, it's mostly geared towards intraday trading. You can do a bit of a swing trading with it as well. And what's really nice about this, and one of the features that's really cool about the micro power trader, is that there's ways that you can scale into positions. I'll be going through that and why that might be a good idea, but let's quickly have a first look at all of these lines on here. Now, these blue dash lines, I believe you can see that properly on my chart. They're called our MPT trade levels, or MPT trade lines, and you can basically look at them as resistance and support levels, and they update every single day. So there's various different different proprietary calculations that goes into this. So they're not static. They do change on a day-to-day basis. And very importantly, your MPT lines are quite often areas where a market gravitates towards. And just here on this chart, I got a 1 minute open. I quite like trading the 1 minute. You can do a 3 minute, 5 minute, whatever the case might be. I've got it open on the NASDAQ here. So you quite often see price gravitate towards these lines or find support and resistance at these lines. Now, once I got through all of the tools included here, or just some of them, there are actually quite a few. I can go on probably for a few hours if I have to include everything. But the MPT lines are very important. This is the area that I want to trade from, or as close to these areas as possible. So we also look at quite a lot of confluence signals that need to occur close to an area, and then also disregard signals that occur to try, that the software is telling you getting in or out of trades at areas that's sort of like hovering in between these MPT lines. I kind of like just don't pay any attention to them. So just keep that in the back of your mind. We're looking for confluence here of various signals and various indicators, sort of what the indicators are telling you pretty much in short around about these lines. So these are your MPT lines. Now in my chart, the way I've got it set up, you see all these diamonds. We got red diamonds. They are reversal signals. We also have scalper signals, as well as those trend continuation signals, which I don't have on the chart here today. But I think just for today's session, I'll give you a few sort of, how can I say, examples of how it is I would trade the MPT trader. So these signals, red for bearish, green for bullish, and they're quite often the trigger candles or the signals from where I would take my trades from, or take my trades. Again, they need to be as close as possible to these MPT lines. Then we have you see this red line and this green line here. It's basically one of the trend detectors that the software uses. Quite cool here. Although I'm trading from a 1 minute time frame, I can set this trend detector to look at a higher time frame. This case is set to a 5 minute time frame. So whenever I see green on here, I will only go long, and when I see red, I'll only go short. Right, again, these are my trend reversal signals. I don't have the other ones on for today's explanation, but they work very similar. It really depends on what you want to do. You want to trade reversals, trend continuations, or whatever the case might be. So what I like to do, just to give you a quick few examples of setups, although I didn't trade them this morning, is, for example, let's say I wait for, in this case, my trend detector turned red. And of course, I got my red, these triangles on here on my reversal signals. There's a specific way that I trade them. I like to see price, let's say in this case, let me just get rid of that snap mode, break an MPT line and pull back towards it and get as close to it. And sometimes you have a bit of overthrows or price not sort of reaching it, but I'm quite, conservative with my trading. I really like to see price make contact with these MPT lines. And then in this case, beautiful setup would have occurred if we have a break of an MPT line, retest of an MPT line, and then get into a position. All right. So also one of the goals of the MPT trader is to scale into trades. Basically, because it is trading at 1/10 of the mini contracts. The mini contracts. If I had multiple signals, let's say at this level, I'll quite often build into 6 contracts, but it really depends on your account size, your risk tolerance, whatever the case might be, and then trade towards or set target scale in and try to scale out of a position. Or I quite like to set targets at sort of midway between an MPT line, thinking that if we had a break, a retest, that price will gravitate towards an MPT line again. In this case, it's low MPT line. So you could gradually, let's say there was a few red signals I'll get into personally, and I think I've done that on those videos as well, get into like 4-6 contracts, scale out. I use a very specific trade management technique as well, which I'll explain in those videos. And then even though I got a lot of green signals here, my trend detector said red, so I'm not interested in these green ones. Get into a position, scale out if you've got multiple positions, and then set your targets accordingly. So that's very simple. One of the favorite signals I like. Again, like to see a break of a level, retest with a signal, and then trade to the downside in this case. You can even see how beautiful this MP10 line acted as support over here. So let's say, for example, this is obviously not a really good example, but this trend detector line was green at this stage. Then, you could slowly start building into a position. In this case, I probably would have fired away about 4 contracts and manually entering the markets. What I like to do, although that being said, we've also built in a automated entry feature. If you look at the top here, there is a way that you can imply a different indicator that allows you to automatically get filled using an ATM strategy. And you can see here on the left-hand side, it says L and S, it's long and short signals, and it will take a maximum of 5 trades. In this case, again, with the purpose of sort of scaling into position. So maximum 5 entries. This can all be changed according to your own user settings. Again, if you then have an ATM strategy set up, let's say trading 1 contract, you'll fill you a maximum of 5 contracts. You can activate this by clicking on the green there. Just make sure that your ATM strategy is then sort of loaded and ready to go. Or you, let's say, decide you don't want it active anymore, you can just basically switch it off again. So yeah, that sort of helps with the automated entry side of things, getting rid of that fear of getting into a trade or whatever the case might be. It's not a personal feature that I like trading too much. I'm pretty old school with these things. I like to really wait for all the right conditions. In this case, a confluence of multiple signals to occur. One of the signals, would be price action, price gravitating below, in this case, in a bearish move, and the MPT line pulling back. Get a signal, also confirmed by a trend detector, and then get into a trade. And I'll quite often, like I said, probably build to a maximum of 6 contracts into a position. But that being said, although this works really well on micro contracts to scale into trades, also just always be aware that, you need to know if you got sitting with 6 positions, it's probably not as, 6 or 10 positions, 10 positions would be that of a mini contract. Just to know where your stop loss should be and where your target should be, and always keep your risk sort of in control as well. But just a really great program to help you get into really cool sort of, I wouldn't say this is a scalping sort of setup. There is a scalping feature as well where you can really go for very small movements. When I was trading this with those 5 video series that I did, the signals that I took was, again, at these MPT lines when everything's sort of shown in the direction I want to trade at or from. And then I held positions anywhere from a few minutes to even a few hours. And that's just trading it from a 1-minute time frame. Now, you can trade this on the minis as well, but especially for those with potentially smaller accounts or do like trading the micro contracts, this is a really good sort of program to, especially if you want to build into positions as well. Again, very important to note, and I'll say this the last time now, is that, you want to be trading around these MPT lines, and you've got to define an area where, you want to do your business at, in this case, trading, right? So I disregard all these signals that appear between these lines, but quite often you'll see beautiful movements like this, for example, where price gravitates back to them, and that makes really, really nice targets. So let's say, for example, I'm not in a trade here. This might be a trade I'm willing to take. You see price breaks above an MPT line. And this is, again, just using the reversal signal suite. And we see a reversal back towards the MPT line. Price doesn't have to always 100% reach these lines, but I mean, this is just a few ticks away of that MPT line. One could then decide to, on this first signal, maybe build into 2 contracts. Got another signal, build into 2 contracts. And then obviously know beforehand what your maximum amount of contracts is that you want to get in. And if you're right about things, start scaling out, if price starts moving in your direction, and potentially even place some sort of runner at a higher MPT line in this case if price should continue to the upside. So we got another one that just fired away there. So that would be 3 signals that just fired away, and typically probably a good example of what it is I would like to do with the reversal signals. Guys, that's the long and short of it. A really cool program to be part of. I must say I really enjoyed shooting those 5 live trading videos. Again, there's so many different features built into this, and potentially not, I can't really go into all of them today. Like I said, you look at the package, what's included in today's tool spotlight on the MPT trader. There's quite a few sort of ways that you can use this. We've also got trend oscillators that can really help you with staying on the right side of the trend. You can see those 5 days of recorded pro live trading videos. That was me trading the MPT power trader. So yeah, just a really cool package overall, especially for those. I think you can swing with this, but I really enjoyed actually trading intraday with this, and yeah, really enjoyed it. So a really cool product too, that's for sure. So in short, long of short of it, that's it from the analysis side as well as the tool spotlight. So yeah, if you guys got any questions, then please let me know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the look under the hood. I think this is one you and I were talking about it even before this session, just how much you've enjoyed using this and creating the content around it. And this is our first time being able to bust this one out. So I'm glad we were able to do so. Of course, in the future, we always like to revisit and do some more tool spotlights. So one day we'll break this back out for you again. But yeah, if you had any questions in the meantime, it looked like Blessing did have a question for us, and Hal was able to swoop in, which I love this room. I love everybody here, our little community that's come together. Just everybody's just so eager to help each other. This is fantastic. So thank you so much, Hal, for jumping in there.
Thanks, Hal.
Yeah, and thank you, Blessing, for coming back. It's always great to see you. I hope you've been well. But in the meantime here, if anybody had any questions about the Micro Power Trader, whether you're joining us on the simulcast on YouTube or you're here in the VIP bottle service section of the Zoom, we're happy to dig into that with you. We do, of course, have that link. I did post it earlier, right as Richard started kind of digging into this, just so we didn't lose track of it. But I'll go ahead and post that again. And similarly to when we do these spotlights previously, basically what we want to do is share a link with you that gets you in for the special launch price. So for instance, MPT on the storefront, I believe is listed at $897 now, Richard. So generally we try to target something that gets you at least around 50% off of these tools. Again, when there's a launch or a special promo price, this is the price you get. So we do want to make that available to you exclusively to the people that are here. If you're already an owner, we'd love to hear about your experience, or if you're curious, if you want to know any more about this after the session, please feel free to ping our support, give us a phone call. You'll find no shortage of people who are here and eager to help. So,
Blessing, I see you got a question there. Is there any change to the features? Blessing, when did you download this, or how long have you had the MPT trader for? Or micro power trader. Since 27, I believe if you contact support, but I do know that when I was actually assigned to do those 5 trading days or 5 trading videos, that there was a software update. And another thing that's just a pro tip from my side, quite often why I also not test drive these, but I would say live trade a lot of these indicators of Ninjacators, is to, see if there are any sort of bugs that pops up from periodically. We have to update some of these things. Sometimes there's a major update from NinjaTrader side of things, and then that might break a few things on the actual coding side of the indicators. So I believe there was an update. I'll probably have to recheck that for you, but I don't think anything would be wrong to potentially try to, just go into the members area again, if you still have access to that, and download it. I do believe there was an update. So yeah, that's probably something you would like to try that out, especially if you've been a member since 2017. Now, the other thing that I've also noticed is that and I've seen this with Ninja itself. So I wouldn't really say this is an issue from Ninjacator side of things. Is when you open multiple tabs in one window, that tends to screw things up a little bit. And regardless, if not just in Ninjacators indicators, I've actually found this on some of the older stuff that I had on my computer before I joined Ninjacators. So if you're opening multiple tabs in one window, that kind of tends to give issues. So if you want to, let's say, have the MNQ, MES, Microgold, MGC, or whatever the case might be, open, then I would recommend from my side to open a window for each one of those markets and then loading the indicator, whatever you want to use in the suite, individually onto those charts without having too many tabs open, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, that's a great tip, Richard. I'm glad actually that came up. You were able to share that because, yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of, if you can create some separation there just within NinjaTrader, getting a couple of windows going. I'm a big fan of that. And things just tend to run smoother in general with NinjaTrader. I've noticed that. So fantastic. Well, Blessing, absolutely. Feel free to follow up with us. Definitely check with support on that update. Ideally, that solves any issue you would be having, but you know where to find us as well. We will, of course, be back Wednesday and Thursday this week. So Wednesday, of course, as we're looking ahead here, we'll have Craig Hill, our very own Craig Hill, will be back in the house Wednesday with some updates on his botfolio. If you've seen any of our previous sessions with Craig, he likes to come in, share how the bots have been doing. He gives you a look into the portfolios he's built. And if you are a Robot Lab member, I know we do have a few that join us in these sessions. They get to see Craig pretty much every week. So Craig will be back on Wednesday. Thursday, we will, of course, be back. It looks like we do have a couple more questions coming through, which is great. So we can just dive right into that. Richard, they're probably already on your radar, I would imagine.
Right, Hal. I've got absolutely no idea. And I've actually passed this on to Kyle, which is sort of our guru here on the trading side of the strategies and stuff. You probably met Kyle before on a webinar, whatever the case might be. And it's something that's been happening, I don't know, for quite some time. And like I said, it's not just for Ninjacators indicators. It's any sort of indicators that you kind of have. It really depends on how can I say, probably data intensive it is. I think there's something, if a lot of, let's say you're running huge algorithms on multiple tabs, tends to just cause that. And I'm not really 100% sure, to be dead honest, why. But it'll be really cool to figure that out. And maybe I'll just touch base with Kyle again and ask him if they figured out what the case might be. So,
sure.
Yeah, not 100% sure how to answer that, Hal, but it is an issue, that's for sure. And then Blessing, asking that you say you would only take short trades when the line is red. Yeah, so you also got that oscillator that's built in there. I just quite like to keep things very clean on my charts. So this trend detector here is actually set to a 5-minute chart. So if you go a 5-minute time frame, so it's actually using its calculations, although you're trading from 1 minute, is looking at what that trend is on a 5-minute time frame. So it's also so when it's red, I will only take short signals. And when it's green, I only take long signals, if that makes sense. Again, there's some times where you can, because it's a user input defined indicator, if you have very strong trending conditions like this, for example, I really like having my higher time frame for the trend detector set to 5 minutes, because it keeps you on the right side of the trend for quite some time. Then when you, let's say, have days where you have a lot of sideways gyration, up and down, up and down, up and down, then for me, it makes sense to move that time frame down in that setting to 1 minute, potentially the chart you want to be trading from. In this case, if you switch to 1 minute, it will just switch, between red and green, bullish and bearish, way sooner, and then off. And if the reason why I want to do that is then potentially change my mindset, because obviously the market's running sideways, that I'm potentially aim for smaller targets. And, there are some times where I might disregard of what the trend detector is telling me as well. But for most part, I like to have it on a 5-minute trading from 1 minute time frame, or you can have a 3-minute time frame and set it to, I don't know, 10-minute or even 5-minute. And during very strong trending conditions, really keeps you on the right side of the market. But when you start seeing this flipping up and down, up and down, up and down, if you really want to scalp, for example, you need to then, in these conditions, maybe aim for targets that's much closer by to the current price action and potentially switch to the 1 minute on the trend detector. So it switches much faster, if that makes sense. Yeah, Blessing. So you've had it since 2021. I still even think there was an update in between. So maybe just reach out to support. I think there definitely was. I've done so many videos in the past 6 months. What's it now? About 8 months. And I think for most of them, here and there were updates. So just reach out to support. If you don't come right there, then I'll reach out to Kyle myself and just make sure. But I do think there was an update since 2021. James, the empathy is empathy like the super trend indicator. James, the super trend I've not used yet, to be dead honest with you. So I'm not 100% sure how the super trend works. But like I said, there's a lot of indicators included in the thing, and you can basically, in the program itself. So, whether you want to trade retracements or retests of area like I did, or you want to scalp the market, whatever the case might be. I'm just basically showed you this trend detector to just, show you what it is I look for as one of the indicator confluences, if that makes sense, to help me decide whether I should get in or out of trades. So not 100% sure about the super trend indicator, to be very honest, James. Yeah, Blessings. I believe the empathy is only time-based. There's no Renko charts or any of that. Although I think you can probably trade, I don't know, tick charts, whatever the case might be. But for me, just been trading 1 minute, even if you go through all of the training videos in the members areas, they all use minute charts.
Fantastic. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't share that link with you one more time. This is the link I mentioned earlier. That'll take you to the order form Richard shared earlier in that presentation. And it just gets you the micro power trader at the special launch price. So if you're interested in learning more, if you wanted to check it out, and again, and we always encourage you, you see that phone number plastered all over the website. Outside of these sessions, if you have any questions or anything else comes up, anything you didn't think of here, please feel free to reach out. And then again, as mentioned, you know where to find us. So we'll be back on Wednesday. Wednesday at noon Eastern, and our very own Craig Hill will be in the house with some updates on his botfolio. And then, of course, we'll do our best to keep you apprised of our live event calendar. I know we just recently rolled out the Signal Trader Lab to, much fanfare, and there's a lot of buzz surrounding that right now. So whether you might be a new member, we're already a member, or you're just curious to hear more, we will have some more updates and some live events we can share with you where you can go talk with Christian and Kyle, and they'll share all of the updates, everything they've been working on that front. But very exciting there. And of course, as always, I just want to thank Richard. I want to thank all of our attendees here in Zoom, over on YouTube. We absolutely love spending this time with you, and it's great to see the familiar faces and the crowd we've built here. So again, very much looking forward to having everybody back on Wednesday. So thank you again for your time. And if anything comes up, remember, just reach out to our support. We're always happy to help. So, Richard, in lieu of, I could do a dad joke, or we could, go old school and have some parting wisdom. I see Jackie is not here. Jackie she may take offense to missing a dad joke, but
No, I don't really have too much departing wisdom for this week. Like I said, on the analysis side of things, still expecting more upside on the indices. yeah, watch those levels. I don't know if you guys drew in any of those market geometry lines on your own charts, but yeah, so please starting to get an idea of how I incorporate price action with market geometry as well as the levels to lock. So again, we got those CPI numbers on Wednesday. So that might be or might not be a volatile sort of time period. So yeah, let's see. Maybe you can expect sideways movement into that, but who knows? We'll recap everything on Wednesday again. So yeah, not really any wisdom from my side too much.
Roger that. Well, it's appreciated nonetheless. And I tell you what, we'll just make it an epic Wednesday of dad jokes when we have Craig here, because Craig also really enjoys the
Let's
terrible
do that.
jokes. So I tell you what, I'll give Craig some homework. We'll have to show up with one. He'll have to be armed and equipped with a terrible joke. So you have that to look forward to as well on Wednesday with Craig Hill in the house. But yeah, thank you again so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and we hope to see all of you again on Wednesday for more analysis, our levels to lock, and very special guest Craig Hill. So thank you again, everybody. Bye-bye.
Awesome stuff. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.